Once you've downloaded the Minivan app from either the Google Store if you're on an Android device or the Apple Store if you are on an iPhone, you tap on the Minivan icon to launch the application. Now that may prompt you to log in with your Action ID, so go ahead and do that. It'll be your email address and a password. If you do not have an Action ID, then there will be a link for you to set one up. You'll need to do that before you use Minivan. And if you already have an Action ID, but you don't remember, if you try and use your email address and it says you've already got an Action ID associated with that email address, then you can just use the forgot your password link and it'll help you reset your password. Once you've logged in, then you can start by entering the list number that we provided in your Nonstop Lit Drop email. My list number, for example, is 355-79215-13904. Your list number will be different. Don't use that list number. That's the list that I am walking, but it's what I will use for my example. Now, I'm going to show you the map view, which is what we're going to use to walk from house to house. If you're using the app in an apartment complex or where there's a lot of units in a condo complex, for example, map view might not be the best tool for that. In that case, we'll use household view, which is what we're looking at right now and what you look at by default when you log into Minivan. But I'll get to that in a minute. First, I'm going to show you the map view, because most of the time, your turf is going to consist of a number of homes next to one another or within close proximity to one another. And so as I switch over to map view, I can zoom in on a particular part of the map. So here's all the different homes that have at least one Democrat that are on my list, the total of 50 doors. As I scroll into this cul-de-sac here, just off of Billings on Winthrop Circle near Lindsay, I pull in. I've decided that's where I'm going to start my lit drop today. So I'm going to go to this home with 3 people in it. It's 3 Democrats in it, rather. That's this number 3 that's indicated here. When I tap on that, it's going to give me my address. And I can see that here are the 3 Democrats that live there. I'm going to tap on one of their names and I'm going to click on I couldn't reach this contact. So you don't worry about the script that's underneath that. Please ignore that. You have to add a script of some sort in order to generate the Minivan number for this list. But we're just going to ignore the script because we're not asking any questions. We're not knocking on doors. All we're doing is marking whether we've been there or not. And the quickest way to do that is by tapping on I couldn't reach this contact and tap on not home. Don't use any of the other options because that will confuse the data. Not home is really a meaningless indicator. It will not confuse people later on if they are looking at this data. And so click back. You can see now that the color is orange instead of white on the home that we are at. You don't have to mark everybody in that home in order to make that happen. And there's really not a point to doing that. We don't care about knowing who's home or not because we're not actually finding that out. We're not knocking on these doors. We're just dropping a piece of literature and moving on. So all we're doing is telling the app, please color this dot orange so that I can differentiate it when I go back to my map view and I can see that, oh, okay, so I've been to that one, that's orange. So now I'm going to walk across the street to these homes that have 1 Democrat in them each. And I'm going to do the same thing. Drop a piece of lit, not home, click back, do the same thing for this other home, tap the person's name. I couldn't reach the contact, not home, back. I'm done with this circle. I'm done with the little cul-de-sac here. So now I'm going to continue on with my lit drop and go to the next cul-de-sac down the road and so on. As I scroll out, you can see that this orange color gives me a nice differentiation between the places that I've been and the places that I haven't gone to yet. Now, I mentioned before that there's times when the map view is not going to be as helpful. What it looks like when you have an apartment complex, for example, on your list is There'll just be one of these dots, but it'll really be a pile of dots underneath that one dot, and you can't really see one from the next or differentiate it. And it's all for all the different units in that apartment complex that have doors that you're going to visit. So there might be 20 doors under that one dot, and just marking one of them orange isn't really helpful to understand what your progress looks like in that apartment complex. So for that, you're going to want to switch back to household view. This is the original view that we were in, and you can see that this is actually, so instead of 2110 East Baltimore, it would be 2410 East Baltimore Unit 3, and the next one would be 2410 East Baltimore Unit 23, and so on. So you could mark each individual unit here the same way, tap on one of the names in that unit, say that they were not home, go back, go back. And even though you're not looking at a map, you don't really need a map. It's not useful for walking around in an apartment complex, but you can still track which units you've been to and which ones you haven't using this method. The last thing is to make sure that when you are done, just so you don't lose your own progress, especially if you only do part of your list one day and you're going to go back and finish the next day, you're going to want to go to the upper right-hand corner, and you see this sort of cloud-looking icon with an arrow in it. Tap on that, and it will sync the data. And that way you'll come back and it will remember where you've been. And so you can complete your list. That's really all there is to it. If you do have any questions, please contact ld25@maricopadems.org, or you can text 602-489-3206. Thank you so much for volunteering to help us with these lit drops. It's really impactful work, and we will see the results very soon.